I never expected to invite the janitor to my party, only to discover a heartwarming secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The lights flickered, the music blared, and laughter filled the air. It was supposed to be the best night of my life, my birthday, my sweet 16. But then there was a knock at the door. My heart raced. A shiver ran down my spine. I opened it. There he stood, a janitor in a faded blue uniform, his mop dangling at his side. The awkwardness hung palpably in the air. Why was he here? He didn't belong to this world of confetti and cake. Hey I'm here for the cleanup, he said, voice barely above a whisper. My friends chuckled, their eyes darting from me to him, a mix of confusion and amusement. I could feel my face flush. No one invited him. It didn't make sense. Yet, something about his presence stirred something in me, a strange curiosity. He had kind eyes. The kind that seemed to hold the weight of untold stories. I caught myself staring as he mumbled something about blackout poetry and regret. His hands were rough, weathered from years of work, yet they trembled slightly. I couldn't help but wonder. What stories did he carry? Can I put my things down? He asked, glancing toward the corner. I hesitated, uncertainty clawing at my throat. But then I nodded. It felt like an unspoken agreement, the kind that hinted at deeper connections hidden beneath the surface. As the party warped into full swing, I couldn't shake the feeling of him watching. I caught glimpses of him in the shadows, piecing together the fragments of his presence amid the vibrant chaos. Laughter rang out, drinks spilled, but he remained an enigma. There was an old photograph peeking out from his pocket, a face I couldn't quite place. Who was it? My chest tightened, curiosity pulling me closer than the festivities. Then, my best friend Mia, with her curly hair and infectious smile, approached me. You really invited him? She whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. The laughter faded into the background as I shot her a furious glare. This was my moment, my day. I didn't want it overshadowed by the surprise of an unexpected guest. But how could I ignore the quiet strength he emanated? As I watched him collect empties from the floor, a strange urge struck me. I drifted away from the party, leaving the noise behind. Standing beside him, silence enveloped us, cocooning us apart from the chaos. You don't have to do this, you know, I said finally, breaking the ice. You're not meant to be here. My heart raced. The rhythm of the music pulsed in my ears, a harsh contrast to the stillness between us. He turned slightly, looking past me. No one ever really knows where they belong, he murmured. A lump formed in my throat. Was he speaking about himself or the world? My eyes darted back to the party, laughter mingling with a growing unease. I felt a sudden chill, the darkness creeping in. And just like that, a reckless decision replaced the quietness. I invited him in, the thought bubbling uncontrollably. Stay and celebrate with us. His gaze flicked to me, uncertain. I held my breath. What was I doing? Behind us, the music crescendoed, laughter echoed, and the excitement surged. But in that moment, I sensed a shift. As I reached out to him, my hand trembled. The air crackled with tension before a thunderous boom rocked the room. The lights flickered, plunging us into darkness. Screams erupted. People surged toward the exit, panic flooding the scene. I felt my heart pounding in my chest. As I stumbled, I turned to the janitor. He stood there, even in the chaos, his expression unreadable. But then, as the shadows consumed us, I saw something flash in his eyes, a fleeting moment, a truth waiting to be revealed. And right then, I understood. This night would change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness wrapped around us like a heavy blanket, muffling the chaos outside. The screams, which had first erupted like a tempest, gradually turned into hushed murmurs, sporadic cries cutting through the thick air. In that moment, the janitor and I were left standing in silence, a disconnected pair afloat amid a sea of frantic bodies. "Can you see?" he asked, his voice low but steady. I shook my head, the absence of light heightening my senses, making everything feel extraordinarily surreal. I could feel his presence. It wasn't just the physical anticipation of having someone beside me amid the pandemonium. No, it was something deeper, a tug at my soul that threatened to pull me into a bitter abyss of understanding. Just then, the lights flickered back to life. A dull throb filled the room as bodies began to emerge, shadows morphing into familiar faces. The party atmosphere was splintered, laughter was replaced with confusion. My friends were scanning the crowd, eyes wide, searching for other familiar figures, but there was something different in their demeanor now. "Milo!" Mia called out, her voice wavering with urgency. I turned to the janitor, ready to urge him to leave, to retreat back to the shadows where he felt more at home. But the look on his face stopped me. It was a strange mix of relief and sorrow, as if he had just stepped from a dream only to realize it was still the same nightmare. "That I should help them," he said softly, almost to himself. "This isn't my world." But the sincerity in his voice resonated with me, nudging at my frustration. Was this his world? Had I truly been right in trying to bridge that divide? "Your world doesn't have to be defined by what's expected," I whispered back, grappling with my own swirling emotions. "You're more than just a janitor, there's so much more to you, I can see that." My words hung heavy between us. Was I speaking truth or simply clinging to the sliver of hope that I could somehow understand him? He looked down, the weight of my proclamation lingering. "You think that, but you don't really know me." "Then tell me," I urged, desperation flavoring my tone. "Who are you?" Before he could answer, a loud crash broke the moment, the sound of tables toppling as someone tried to maneuver through the crowd. I turned to see a group of my classmates pushing toward the exit, faces grimy with distress. The contrast of their joy from just moments ago made the moment feel almost unreal. As if sensing my shift in focus, the janitor reached out and gripped my wrist, anchoring me firmly to his side. "Stay with me," he said, his voice low. "You might need to lean on me, for a moment." My heart sank. A jarring realization swept over me. He wanted to protect me as the world around us buckled. "I don't want to feel scared," I admitted, attempting to mask the tremor in my voice. There it was again, the sense that I was standing on the precipice of something monumental, with him as my unlikely guide through the storm. Suddenly, amidst the confusion, I caught sight of the photograph that had fallen from his pocket, now crumpled on the floor. Without thinking, I knelt to pick it up, heart racing. As I glanced at the familiar face in the faded image, my stomach dropped. That it was my mother. Staring at the photo, everything around me fell silent. The realization hit like a wave crashing against the shore. The janitor was not just a stranger, he was a link to my past. My mind raced, grasping for clarity. Why was he connected to her? What kind of life had he led, Milo? Mia's voice pierced through my fog. I looked up, confusion written all over my face. "What's happening?" I wanted to respond, to explain, but I found myself lost in the intensity of the janitor's gaze as he regarded me. It was as if he recognized the impact of the unearthly connection we had stumbled upon together. "Why did you have this?" The question tumbled from my lips, bubbling with confusion, hurt, and burgeoning anger. His expression shifted, one that told me more was at stake than I understood. Some secrets are meant to be kept, while others were just waiting for the right moment. As panic surged anew, a strange calm settled over me. Maybe it wasn't just a party, it was a awakening, and before I could catch my breath, he whispered, your life is about to change forever, Milo. You deserve to know the truth." With that, the energy in the room shifted again. It felt as if the walls were closing in, as if fate was threading the loose ends of my life into a pattern I was not ready to face. I opened my mouth to ask him to explain, to peel back the layers of the mystery, but before I could utter a word, the lights dimmed once more. An earth-shattering crash resonated from the back of the venue, and everything went black. In the pitch blackness, a cacophony of gasps erupted, followed by shouts as people stumbled over one another in a frantic attempt to comprehend the sudden descent into chaos. I could feel the janitor's grip on my wrist tighten, offering comfort amidst the tumult. Almost instinctively, I leaned closer to him, grounding myself in his presence. "Stay close," he urged softly, his voice a beacon through the darkness. The fear vibrating through the crowd was palpable, but it was more than just immediate uncertainty. I sensed a collective anxiety that had been festering beneath the surface, one that was now erupting in a terrifying manifestation. Weaving through the scattered bodies, I felt myself being pulled along by him. As we maneuvered through the shadows, the darkness buzzed with whispered conversations, unsure laughter fading into silence as the unknown eclipsed the moment. For a brief moment, I found solace in the warmth of his body next to mine, and it became a life raft amidst the encroaching storm. The sudden brightness returned, striking like lightning. I shielded my eyes, blinking away the sting, while instinctively grasping the janitor's arm to regain my bearings. What I saw shattered my heart into countless fraying pieces. Only the remnants of the party remained. The decorations lay in tatters, and several classmates were huddled together, fear painted across their faces. The cheers of a moment ago now seemed an echo from another life. "Milo!" Mia's urgent voice rose above the murmur, pulling me away from my thoughts. She was staring at us, wide-eyed and trembling. "You need to find the exits," the janitor interrupted, his voice steady and commanding. "The situation might escalate. We need to get out before it gets worse." His protective spirit flickered a glint of hope within me. A sense of urgency compelled me forward, though a deep unease clung to my thoughts. Was the lingering dread merely from the party disaster, or was it connected to the weight of what I'd just uncovered about him? We moved toward the nearest exit, but suddenly, the lights flickered again, plunging us into darkness. This time, however, a different kind of panic surged. Distant voices Kaladedu heard shouts, the unmistakable sound of breaking glass, and then, a bone-chilling scream echoed through the venue. "Stay close," the janitor hissed, pulling me tight against him as we edged back toward the center of the room, where the fear was less overwhelming. I could feel his heart racing beneath his uniform, echoing my own internal turmoil. "Milo?" MIA's frantic voice broke through the chaos. "We need to stick together. We can't split up." We all huddled close, a desperate group drawn together by fear and uncertainty, but my thoughts floated back to the crumpled photograph, the image of my mother in the janitor's hand. The Connect Iona thread woven through past memories and present turmoil tightened around my heart. "Who are you?" I asked him once more, the words tumbling free in a moment of clarity amid the chaos. "Why did you keep this?" The intensity in his piercing gaze reassured me, even as tension coiled tighter around the room. "There are too many things left unsaid, Milo," he said, his voice strained but steady. "And now they are all surfacing at once, Milo," Mia insisted, her voice rising over the crowd. "We can't talk about this now. We need to get out." At that moment, the lights blazed back into life, flooding the room with brightness. A sense of relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. A large figure loomed in the center of the room, and the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. It was a security guard, and he was flanked by a group of officials. "You all need to evacuate now," he commanded, his voice booming. No exceptions. As panic seeped into the crowd, our small group surged through the throngs of darting bodies, the janitor's hand never leaving mine. In that moment, I felt our fates intertwined, as if every choice made led us here, a strange and deeply emotional binding between us. That we rushed toward the door, but I felt the weight of the photograph in my pocket like a leaden anchor, and I faltered, glancing back at the janitor. "Wait. You have to tell me the truth, please," he paused, locking eyes with me, and I saw a flicker of anguish dance within the depths of his gaze. "Milo," he said urgently, "you don't know what you're asking. This truth is more dangerous than you can imagine." Before I could respond, a new loud crash reverberated, drowning out our words. It was coming from the back of the room, followed by the unmistakable sound of a door being flung open violently. Screams erupted anew, echoing through the chaos, and dread pooled in my stomach. "Come on!" he shouted, pulling me along with renewed urgency. "We have to go now." Just as we neared the exit, a blaring alarm filled the air, and in that instant, I noticed a flash of a figure moving toward us through the stampede of terrified students. The chaos around us shifted. Out from the tumult, an unexpected voice broke through, the voice I recognized all too well. "Milo." It was my mother. As I stood frozen, my heart pounded in disbelief, my mother navigating the chaos like a beacon through dense fog. The sight of her was both grounding and disorienting. She looked out of breath, her cheeks flushed from exertion. I could see the tension etched on her face as she searched fervently through the crowd, and that moment stretched between us like an invisible thread fatigued by years of silence. "Milo. Over here!" she shouted, scrambling toward us. The surrounding noise faded, and it felt as if time had slowed. The reality of her presence, both exhilarating and terrifying, enveloped me. For a fleeting second, I hesitated. The heaviness of the tension lingering between the janitor and me collided with my instinct to rush to my mother. I glanced at the janitor, his face a picture of conflicting emotions: relief, anger, and something deeper that gnawed at my insides. "Milo, please." My mother's voice climbed an octave, snapping me back to the moment. Her eyes were wide with concern, but they reflected something heavier. Regret? Fear? They darted to the janitor, and an imperceptible understanding exchanged between them in that charged space, a shared history wrapped tightly in layers of silent grief. "Let's go," the janitor urged. Releasing my hand for a brief second felt like losing a lifeline. I was dragged back into the chaos, into the growing uncertainty of the moment. The shrill alarm screeched like metal on metal, and desperation thickened the air. "We're not leaving without talking," I insisted, resisting against the current of bodies pushing onward. "Milo, listen," my mother pleaded, stepping closer. "I need to explain, but right now, we have to get to safety." The janitor's expression shifted, tension mounting between him and my mother. "There's not enough time," he asserted, his voice low but steady. "You both need to prioritize your safety. The truth, if you confront it now, it can only bring harm." "Why?" I begged, my voice breaking, and suddenly the tsunami of my emotions reached the shore. "Why is this happening? Why do you both know something I don't?" My mother stared at me, her eyes glistening. "Milo, I promise it's not what you think. I never meant to." Just as she seemed poised to disclose whatever truth hung heavy between us, the lights flickered again, this time dimmer, as if the room itself felt the weight of our shared history pressing down. The security guard, still surveying, pushed toward us. "We have to move you out now," he barked, his urgency unyielding, but I was stuck, tethered to a moment I felt was pivotal. "Mom! I can't!" A sudden jolt shot through the crowd as the unmistakable sound of shattering glass echoed again. The panic resumed, and the wave of bodies surged toward the exit, pushing me dangerously close to the edge of being swept away. "Milo!" the janitor shouted, his voice slicing through the cacophony. "We can talk about this later, I swear. Right now, your mother is right, safety is paramount." Before I could respond, the crowd bumped against me, and I was torn between the two. My mother reached for me, desperate, her voice weaving through the noise. "Milo, I need you to trust me. Please." Then, without warning, a sharp scream split the air, a sound ingrained with visceral terror. Somewhere on the periphery of my awareness, shadows flickered, a commotion brewing just outside the looming exit. I locked eyes with the janitor, an unspoken understanding pulse between us, igniting nightmares long buried, waiting to surface. "Let me protect you, Milo," he said, his voice catching with emotion. "The past doesn't have to define you." My gaze darted back to my mother, an insistent whisper scraping against my insides. I wanted to believe her, to trust that she had a valid reason for everything shrouded in secrecy, but the flicker of fear across her features twisted my heart painfully. Suddenly, a figure burst through the crowd, knocking aside frantic students like a bowling ball through pins. My stomach dropped as instinct kicked in. Something told me to move. Milo. My mother and the janitor fought to keep the distance as shadows lengthened like grasping hands, and in that instant, I felt the tight grip of panic squeezing my heart. Desperation raced through my veins as I turned back to my mother, ready to tell her I believed her, that I wanted to trust her. Mom, but before I could finish, the figure drew closer, and my world flipped as I realized who it was, the person I never expected to see here. It was Sarah, my childhood neighbor, crying out for help in a voice swallowed by the surge. She dashed toward us from behind the writhing bodies, eyes wide with terror. Milo. You need to listen to me. They're coming. My heart sank as fear coursed through me, igniting something primal. Before I could find the words to process the revelation, the chaos roared back to life, crushing me in its grip. In that whirlwind of emotions, my mother's guarded secrets, the janitor's unyielding protection, and Sarah's urgent warning, I knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that nothing would be the same again. And just like that, everything changed. As the thrumming pulse of chaos enveloped us, the edges of my reality began to fray. Sarah's eyes, wide and pleading, bore into mine like the storm on the horizon, urging me to act. Milo. We need to go. They're right behind me. The frantic energy around me swelled, a living organism fueled by fear. My heart raced in counterpoint to the fracas, caught between a mother claiming urgency and a childhood friend warning of some unseen Aurora tempest inside me that threatened to consume my very being. Who's coming? I shouted, desperate to cling to the threads of sanity weaving through the madness. The crowd surged, a mass of bodies crashing together, and just like that, Sarah was lost again, swallowed whole by the tide. Mom. I screamed, throat raw with the tidal wave of confusion crashing over me. Amid my desperation, I felt the reassuring presence of the janitor, a protective shadow shielding me from the surging crowd. At that moment, he became my anchor in this storm of madness. Milo, focus on my voice, he urged, scanning the shifting shadows around us. Use your instincts. Breathe. Taking steadying breaths, I tore my gaze from the crowd to the comforting warmth of his eyes. I tried to hold on to the sameness within this cacophony, a deep-seated need to unravel the truth behind the walls of secrecy, but I felt completely lost. Can't you see what's happening? I gestured toward the chaos, desperation tinged with confusion. Everything is spinning out of control. My mom, she loves you, the janitor interjected softly. But now is not the time for explanations. It's for your safety that safety. I interrupted, a bitter laugh escaping me. What has she kept from me? What could be so bad that she would risk everything to keep it hidden? Just then, a strange quietness settled around us, breaking apart that momentary swell of tension. A small flicker of hope shone through, almost palpably, a child's wish for clarity amid overwhelming darkness. Just trust me, the janitor reiterated, glancing toward where my mother had been moments before. She was still navigating the crowd, though now her movements appeared frantic as faces contorted in shared anxiety. In that split-second pause, I caught a glimpse of her face. The flicker of determination she wore was now tinted with dread, a palpable fear that perhaps this time, she feared for something greater than herself. Milo. Sarah's voice pierced through, stronger now, as she emerged once more from the throng. I can help you, she pleaded, reaching toward me, desperation threading through her tone. I need to tell you what I saw. My heart raced anew, and I turned to the janitor, seeking his approval. What do I do? Listen, Milo. Trust no one but yourself. He strained against the wall of noise, the urgency of our situation igniting something resolute in him. Before I could respond, chaos erupted anew. A scream split the air, not just any scream, but one filled with raw, paralyzing fear. Time slowed again, grief crystallizing into something tangible as the anxious crowd faltered. Stay close. The janitor barked, pushing me toward the outskirts of the fray, but all I could see were Sarah's eyes, wide and pleading. I saw him. The one thereafter. He was here, Milo. I don't know why, but you need to understand's connected to everything. Who are you talking about? I felt myself getting tangled in her urgency, the weight of her words weighing down my own fears, but Sarah's gaze shifted, and her breath quickened as she scanned the crowd. He's watching us. Right now, the atmosphere shifted, a palpable tension settling like ash in my chest and making it hard to breathe. I traced her line of sight, caught between the uncertainty of the past and the undefined danger of the present. My thoughts spiraled as half-formed questions loomed in my mind, like shadows ready to swallow me whole. It's not safe here. The janitor shouted, and before I could urge Sarah to explain, the crowd surged again. People pushed and screamed, grappling for safety, and I felt myself wrenched from one side to the other, grasping desperately for something stably. A firm hand, a familiar face, and then I lost them. I stood amidst the chaos, the din drowning out my thoughts while loneliness wrapped around me like a shroud. The janitor was gone, my mother lost in the folds of panic, and Sarah's voice faded away like a distant echo. In that suffocating silence, dread coiled within me, tightening like a vice around my chest, but then I caught a glimpse, a flash of movement at the perimeter of the exit, the figure moving with purpose, someone I knew, whose presence sent a cold shiver of recognition down my spine. It wasn't the janitor. It wasn't Sarah or my mother. It was the man who had haunted her dreams, the shadow from the award she buried in her past. The man I never thought I'd have to confront. The air sucked from my lungs as a wave of horror crashed over me. I stumbled backward, adrenaline flooding my veins, and all I could do was watch as the truth tipped precariously into the chaos. Nothing would be the same again. I never expected to invite the janitor to my party, only to discover a heartwarming secret. The crowd around me pulsated with raw panic, a collective consciousness intent on survival, yet I stood frozen in the swell of history and uncertainty. My heart shrieked in protest as the man I recognized slipped into the shadows, leaving only the faintest trace of terror in his wake. Had he come for me or someone else? My breaths came shallow and quick, I was unmoored in a sea of dread, yearning for clarity that danced just out of reach. Milo. The panic-laden call broke through the din. Sarah's voice, once familiar and now laced with urgency that transcended our shared history. I twisted through the throng, tracking her cries like lifelines tossed into turbulent waters, hoping to pull me back to solid ground. That I glimpsed her again, just ahead, hair wild, eyes wide. We have to move. Now. She grabbed my arm, her grip firm despite the chaos surrounding us. There's no time. Did you see him? I gasped, oblivion crashing towards me. My internal storm of questions raged now, but only one demanded to be answered. The man. Who is he, Sarah? Her answer came as a murmur, almost lost in the cacophony. He's the reason your mom is scared. The reason they're after us. Us? Why us? I pressed, the weight of our world bearing down heavily, threatening to crush me under both the intensity of her gaze and their chilling truth, but before she could respond, the crowd surged again, a frenzied wave pushing us toward the exit, pulling me from her side. I fought to stay grounded, to hold onto her hand, but within seconds, she slipped from my grasp, swallowed whole by the tumult like so many dreams I had held onto too tightly. A siren pierced the air, the shrill wail slicing through the chaos, drowning out my racing heartbeat as I struggled to reorient myself. My isolation expanded, an unwelcome companion wrapping around me. I darted towards the doorway, the only beacon of hope. The janitor's presence flickered back to me, a strange mix of comfort and responsibility. Where had he gone? Hell, why hadn't I trusted him more? I broke through the doors, spilling into the night, the world a stark contrast with a cool breeze cutting through the remnants of our earlier despair. Outside, the chaos was muffled, yet a feeling of dread followed closely like a faithful shadow. I looked around, searching for any sign of Sarah or the janitor, desperately hoping to find familiarity in the turbulence. Then, as if summoned by my thoughts, a figure emerged from behind a nearby tree, tall, gaunt, and cloaked in shadows. My stomach flipped. It was him, the man from inside, with a face that seemed to fluctuate between menace and despair. My instincts screamed, urging me to run, but I couldn't help anchoring myself to the ground, disbelief paralyzing me. "Hello, Milo." His voice slithered through the air, an unsettling mix of calm and chilling clarity that echoed hauntingly in the silence. "I've been waiting for you, why?" My voice was barely a whisper, yet it rang with uncertainty. The questions I really wanted to ask hung between us like a gathering storm, ready to strike. "That I know you're in pain," he said, his expression oddly serene. "I can help you find what you're looking for." Instinctively, I took a step back, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. "You think I'd trust you? You've put my life in danger. Your mother has secrets she hasn't told you," he continued, his demeanor unwavering. "Secrets that go back long before you were born. And I can help you uncover the truth she's been terrified to reveal." With every word he spoke, a mix of anger and hurt surged within me. "You think I want anything to do with you?" I could barely think straight, the pounding in my ears drowning everything out while I struggled to make sense of it all. "That I am not your enemy." His voice softened, as if he held a compassion that contrasted sharply with the chaos surrounding us. "Your mother is the one hiding. But you, Milo, you will have to decide whether you want to confront her or remain in the shadows of her fear." Something gripped my heart, a flicker of hope born from the depths of despair. What if he was telling the truth? What if there was more than a mere chaos waiting for me? But the idea of following this man, of trusting him, felt like navigating a minefield. Any misstep could cost me dearly. Before I could respond, a familiar figure burst onto the scene. My mother, panic-stricken and breathless. Her eyes darted, frantically searching the area before meeting my gaze. "Milo! Get away from him! Mom!" I shouted, but her unnerved demeanor hit me like a fist. "You know him, Milo, trust me, he's dangerous." She took a step toward me, desperation clawing at her features. "You need to run. We can talk later." And just like that, I stood at a precipice, torn between the woman who had loved and raised me, and the stranger who promised to unveil the truth. Unshed tears pooled in my eyes, the weight of my choice bore down on me like an anchor dragging me into murky depths. I was caught in a storm of conflicting emotions, a chasm of unanswered questions spreading before me like an open wound. Could I trust either of them? The urgency of the moment raced through me as uncertainty held me in a suffocating grip. I couldn't see a way forward, only the shadow of the unknown looming ahead, whispering secrets I might not be ready to hear. And then, in that instant, the shadows surrounding us shifted. Beneath the man's watchful gaze and my mother's pleading cries, something in my gut told me this situation could break upon me like a tidal wave. Whether I chose to swim or sink would be the very fabric of my future. As their voices melded into a chaotic blend, a chilling realization clawed its way through my heart. The truth I sought was about to unfurl, and no secret or safety would remain untarnished. I stood, rooted between two forces that pulled at my very core, but the world kept spinning. My mother's frantic gaze spoke volumes, urging me to understand the gravity of our situation, while the man stranger presented a tantalizing thread that could unravel all I thought I knew about my family. The cacophony of emotions, fear, and expectation swirled around me like a maelstrom. "Milo, what do you want?" I could almost hear my heart asking, as though it were a separate entity threatening to escape my chest. I clutched my phone in my pocket, a small lifeline, a connection to the digital world. But despite the world outside my immediate surroundings being drenched in lights and possibility, I was submerged in darkness, fighting to surface. "Mom, so much is happening." I called out, my voice straining to pierce through the chaos as fear clawed at my insides. "Why didn't you tell me? What's going on? Who is he? Please, just trust me," she implored, her voice trembling. "It's complicated, and I promise I'll explain everything once we're safe. But right now, we can't just leave." I cut her off, a surge of defiance colliding with the reality that my world was unraveling. "I need to know the truth." The atmosphere bristled around us, each heartbeat resonating with urgency, placing unbearable weight on my choices. "Nothing can be solved being reckless, Milo." My mother's voice rose above the din, but her panic only increased my resolve. "He's the reason our lives are in danger, isn't he? He knows things. I gestured vaguely at the man, who remained composite rock ensconced in turbulence. What do you know about my father? That question had slipped out before I could catch it, flooding the space with a heavy silence. All at once, the air thickened, and the man's demeanor shifted, his eyes deepening with an inscrutable emotion. I can help you find him and answers you seek. No. My mother interrupted, stepping forward defiantly. This is exactly why I wanted to keep you safe, but my heart fought against her words. What if he's right? What if he can help me find my dad? My voice wavered, suggesting a vulnerability that had never surfaced before. The buried questions surged anew. Why had my father left? Why the silence? Milo, please, she said softer now, her tone desperately pleading, as if she could see into the turmoil persisting in my heart. I don't want to lose you too. In a moment, a gust of wind took off my phone's lock screen. The flickering light illuminated several self-contained bursts of my friends checking in during the party, accompanied by the glimmering light of their respective realities. It felt like the world was still spinning without me. Their laughter echoed in my mind, mocking my situation. It seemed so far from the strife that stood between me and the truth. I can't choose between whispers in the dark and the life I thought I had. I snapped, desperation dripping from my tone. If you truly don't want me to go with him, tell me everything now. Don't leave me in the dark any longer. A flicker of pain crossed her features, followed by an insurmountable decision reflected in her eyes. If he was a part of your father's life, then yes, it could be dangerous that he could help me find answers. I repeated, even louder now, gripping my phone like it held the key to understanding everything that was wrong. What are you so afraid of? Isn't knowing better than being in the dark forever, Milo? She shouted, trembling fury fused with raw fear. You don't understand what this man is capable of. Do you think any of this is easy for me? That keeping the truth from you is what I wanted. The silence fell heavy between us as I wrestled with the painful truth of her words. She had always shielded me, a vigilant guardian. But why? My heart clenched painfully as I contemplated all the years lost, secrets kept, and a father's absence. The man stepped forward cautiously, as if sensing the frailty of my moment. You don't have to rely on her lies. I can lead you to what you truly seek. I can give you answers and stop. I shouted, cutting him off. I'm tired of this game. Do you want me to trust you, or do you want me to disappear into oblivion? My voice cracked, with frustration boiling over. Please, my mother whispered, tears pooling in her eyes. There are things I've hidden to protect you. If you choose to go with him, you must understand the consequences. It could change everything we have. In that fraying moment of tension, something shifted. I could feel my heartbeat echo violently. The world bent to a singular point of clarity. Choice was not just a splitting path, it was a harrowing leap into the unknown. Yet whether I chose to fight for the truth or flee from the shadows of deception, I felt powerless. But then, as if summoned by the turbulence of our emotions, a soft light appeared in the distance, a figure emerging from the dark, bathed in the fading embers of firelight. It flickered with golden warmth, a gentle reminder that hope could indeed emerge from seemingly insurmountable darkness. As the figure approached, I squinted against the brightness, heart racing. It was Sarah, eyes full of determination and compassion, threading through the wreckage we found ourselves in. Her arrival brought a sudden jolt of clarity, shattering the tension. But who had she brought with her? Those you've been looking for, Milo, she called out, breathless but resolute. Your father, and the truth you thought you'd uncovered is far more complicated than even you were prepared for. With her words, the world tipped on its axis, and the precipice upon which I stood became an abyss of confrontation. Before I could grasp what had just occurred, before any choice had been made, shadows shifted, and secrets threatened to spiral into a chaos I had no way of managing. The unknown loomed ahead, dark and hungry, and my heart raced, aware that a reckoning was finally upon me. The air around us pulsed with mounting tension, the kind that stretched like a taut string ready to snap. I stood there, stunned, my world reduced to the flickering flame of possibility ignited by Sarah's arrival. My heart raced, pounding in my ears as I searched her face for answers. What do you mean? The question escaped me before I even fully processed it. The truth about your father, Milo, she replied, urgency threaded through her words. I didn't know how to tell you, how could I? But he's here now. She gestured behind her as if the shadows could somehow reveal the man I had thought was lost forever. My thoughts whirled like a storm, torn between the safety of my mother's determined fury and the dark allure of uncovering the world I had only begun to comprehend. Something deep within me yearned to leap toward whatever the truth might present. Just as quickly, an overwhelming fear gripped me. Knowing your desires and confronting them head-on was not always a path paved with hope. Mom, I ventured, my voice a whisper against the shield of emotion surrounding us. Can we trust him? Her gaze narrowed on Sarah, searching, pleading for something: clarity, hope, or perhaps a sliver of certainty amidst the impending chaos. You want to go further down this rabbit hole, Milo? She asked, her voice tight. You realize, Milo, listen. Sarah interjected, her tone urgent, as she stepped forward, all warmth and vulnerability. Your father has been looking for you. I swear to you. There's a journey we all must take, but you need to be sure you're ready. Why now? I blurted, questions flashing like lightning in my mind. What's so different about today? With that, a sense of vulnerability enveloped Sarah. Because I can't bear to see you suffer without knowing the truth about your family. I know things your mother doesn't even know. You need to hear it. My voice was steeled with determination, desperate for answers that danced just out of reach. Fine, my mother whispered, her shoulders sagging as if the weight of my resolve settled upon her. But I will not allow you to rush into something you can't control. With a brief exchange between Sarah and the man lurking in the background, the air shifted, as if promising revelations were on the horizon. I could sense the gathering clouds of destiny around us as unanswered questions coiled tighter than ever. Your father. Sarah stepped forward, her cadence unsteady. He isn't the villain you've painted him to be. There are things you don't know, trauma that we all carry, but he loves you. He loves both of you. It felt like a shard of glass cutting through the layers that shrouded my mind. The weight of her statement crashed over me, a deluge of fire and ice that ignited hope while trembling with uncertainty. Then why did he leave? Why doesn't he talk to us? The man standing behind Sarah spoke for the first time, his voice low yet palpable, a thread woven through the fabric of my family's secrets. Because of the choices he had to make, choices he thought were protecting you both. They were decisions made in the heat of crisis, choices. My mind flared with confusion and disbelief. What could possibly justify leaving us? Anguish tinged my voice, envisioning countless nights spent in silence, waiting for the father who never came home. We can tell you everything, Sarah said, reaching forward. But it's not only about your father, it's about your family. There are revelations that tie us all together. Perhaps you can see your way through this, but you must come with us. You have to trust the journey we're on. As she spoke, hope flickered dimly within me, but I felt my mother shift beside me. Her eyes were riveting, a storm in their depths, reflecting every emotion I gathered within my heart. In a moment of raw honesty, she whispered, "You deserve the truth, Milo, but the truth can be a double-edged sword." But I stammered, feeling the earth tilt beneath my feet. We need to decide if we will go into this darkness together. My mother's voice trembled as she broke eye contact. Or if we keep running from which there is no return. The shadows closed in around us, a precipice of decisions laid bare. My heartbeat quickened, knowing that what lay ahead could reshape everything. It wasn't merely about my father but the remnants of who we were, exposed, shuddering thoughts of family ties, longing, and perhaps a fragile slate wiped clean. Yet just as hope began to take hold, the sudden sound of shattering glass erupted from the nearby woods, a chilling reminder that the darkness was still lurking. We turned in unison, a collective breath held suspended. In that moment, within the raw vulnerability of impending decisions and calamities lurking in the background, I knew I was standing at the edge of an abyss. Behind that breaking glass, shadows danced farther into the unknown, hinting at foreboding dangers, determined to follow this thread of precarious truths. My heart raced with a mixture of fear and uncertainty, knowing that my next choice could push me over the edge and forever change the course of my life and the lives of those I loved. The woods whispered secrets as we recoiled from the sound of shattered glass, the eerie silence of the evening settling like a heavy blanket over us. My heart thudded, drowning out the chirp of crickets that usually filled the space with life. "Stay close," my mother urged, instinctively pulling me toward her side. I could feel the tension radiating from her like electricity. She was scared, I could sense it in the way her muscles tightened, her breath slowing as she prepared for an unknown threat. Sarah's eyes darted toward the source of the sound, unwavering. "We need to go. Now." "Go where?" I asked, instinctively glancing at the man who stood like a silhouette behind her. He only watched, his hands tucked into the pockets of a leather jacket faded with age. There was a detachment about him that made my skin crawl, as if he were part of a ghost story wrapped in shadows. "There's a place somewhere safe." Sarah's urgency pierced through my confusion, urging me onward. "But we won't be safe for long if we don't hurry." With my heart thrumming, I locked eyes with my mother, searching for any sign of agreement, but she looked beyond me, her mind tangled somewhere out of reach. "What about my father?" Another crash of glass echoed through the trees. "We don't have time for this," she snapped, her voice rising with fervor. "We need to move or we risk getting caught in whatever is out there." My stomach nodded. "But we're not prepared for the truth yet." Fears gnawed at my resolve like a relentless wolf, just outside the door of my consciousness. Here we were on the brink of discovery, yet we were being pulled back into a chaotic abyss. "Sometimes, the truth isn't safe," my mother said, her voice steady yet laced with emotion. "But what do you want more, Milo? The truth, or to stay sheltered in ignorance, Mom?" I retorted. "I want to know what's happening." "Then trust in those who want to protect you," she said, her eyes pleading as she gestured toward Sarah and the Manna family torn between things never spoken. Torn between regret and yearning, I turned to face them. "Where do we go?" "Follow me," Sarah beckoned, glancing back toward the blackening trees where the last flickers of sunlight faded away. We moved cautiously, stepping over gnarled roots and fallen branches that crunched beneath our feet like brittle dreams. Each step was weighted, the promise of truth tempting yet terrifying, as if it could splinter the fragile balance we had maintained. My mind raced like wild horses, thoughts bolting from one horrifying possibility to the next. "What happened in the woods?" I finally blurted out, breaking the suffocating silence. Sarah hesitated, looking back. "It's complicated. But trust me, it's connected to everything your father, your family." Just then, from deep within the undergrowth, a faint noise caught my attention, the soft whimper of what sounded like a child. My heart dropped, the innocence of a child unnaturally echoing against the dark backdrop of chaos. "What was that?" I gasped, dread curling around my spine. "That we can't stop." My mother insisted, her grip tightening on my arm as she moved faster. But something compelled me to pause, to listen closer. "No, please. There's someone there." In a blink, I broke free, charging towards the sound. Twisting through the brambles, I stumbled into a small clearing illuminated by the waning light. There, huddled beneath the roots of a fallen tree, was a girl no older than 8, shivering and clutching a stuffed bear. "Hey, it's okay," I said softly, crouching down to meet her fearful gaze. "You're safe." Her wide eyes, glimmering with tears, locked onto mine. "They're coming. They're angry." A chill ran through me, understanding that danger lurked not only in the woods but within our truths. My heart sank as I recognized the paralleled fear and understanding that tethered our experiences together, a thread binding strangers through shared despair. "One moment, sweetie," I murmured, glancing back at my mother and Sarah, who were now standing at the edge of the clearing, both breathing heavily with fear and worry. "Who's she?" my mother asked, eyes darting between me and the child. "I don't know," I replied, my confusion swirling into a storm. "But she's scared. We can't just leave her here, there's no time." Sarah's voice quivered with urgency, and I felt the weight of unyielded fear pressing against my chest. "Please." The girl whimpered again, her voice a fragile wisp in the heavy air. "I don't want to be alone, my mother and Sarah exchanged glances, the ambience thick with uncertainty. I felt torn between the urgency to run, to protect my own, and the stark reality of another kid burdened by terror in the dead of night. As if the universe were mocking me, the once distant shuffling grew closer, echoing through the trees into an approaching chaos. "Milo!" My mother called sharply, tears mingling with fear in her eyes. "We have to make a choice right now," but just as I reached out for the girl, the remnants of my journey clashing within me, a sudden roar erupted from the shadows. The world around me shifted, that I was enveloped in darkness as I felt a new layer of urgency seize me, a moment suspended in time where no decision felt right. The tangled threads of fear grew tighter, the truth whispering from the edges of the unknown, pushing me, beckoning me to unlock the pieces of understanding that held our lives together in disparate chaos. And there, in the heart of that stark uncertainty, I wondered if I would have the strength to grasp the truth, or if the darkness would steal everything we held dear. The night stretched endlessly as the oppressive darkness settled around us, heavy with dread and uncertainty. My heart raced, caught in the crossfire of instincts battling against each other. The girl's frightened gaze bore into me, echoing the unease rippling within. But I could hear my mother's voice rising through the noise, begging me to flee, to move on, to escape what was lurking in the shadows. Time stilled, and as I weighed the gravity of my decision, a familiar tug at my heart whispered, "Sometimes, the darkness holds a truth that could break or remake us. Stay here." I finally said to the girl, the words tumbling out like the last shreds of my courage. "I'm going to help you, I promise. Milo." My mother's voice trembled, but this time, it was laced with something else: fear for me, perhaps, or perhaps understanding. "Trust me," I said firmly, glancing back at my mom. The conviction in my voice surprised even me, born of desperate clarity igniting in the absence of answers. I took a step toward the girl, the weight of that decision anchoring me to the ground. "I won't leave you behind." The darkness around us shifted like a living entity, every rustle in the shadows heightening my senses. But my resolve solidified, and I knelt down beside the girl, capturing her small trembling hands in mine. "What's your name?" I whispered, forcing my voice to be gentle. "Lily," she replied, her small voice cracking like fragile glass, so small against the overwhelming backdrop of fear. "Lily," I repeated, letting the name fill the space between us. "You don't need to be scared anymore. I'm here. We're going to get out of here together." As I leaned in closer, I felt my mother and Sarah's probing gazes resting on us, emotions swirling, an unseen bond forming in the air. "But they're coming," Lily whispered, her grip tightening. "They're angry that my heart raced at her words, memories of the chaos from earlier flooding back. "Who's coming?" I pressed gently, eager to uncover whatever truth she might hold. "The shadows, they want you," she murmured, her eyes darting fearfully toward the woods, the very darkness we stood against. "They're bad, Milo. So bad. They'll take you away." Before I could respond, something shifted in the trees, a shadow flickering at the edges of my sight. Someone, or something. The hairs on the back of my neck stood tall, a primal instinct urging me into motion. "We have to go," I shouted, urgency cracking through the tension. "Now." Just as I turned to guide Lily back, an overwhelming roar erupted from the very heart of the darkness, fracturing the air around us. Fiery fear ignited within me, urging me to act. All at once, I knew instinctively that the moment of truth was upon us, and there was no turning back. The piercing roar morphed into frantic screams as shadows collided. Bodies surged from the trees, heavily cloaked figures, their faces obscured, each one fueling my growing sense of dread. "Milo! Run!" My mother cried, but every word felt suffocated by the chaos unfurling around us. But somehow, in that tempest of emotion, I felt the pull of purpose, a need to face what lay ahead. Crying or screaming didn't change the inevitable. I had to confront the darkness. "Hold on tight, Lily," I yelled, grasping her hand. My mother and Sarah bolted beside us, melding into instinct. There was no question we had to forge ahead, whether together or caught in the fractal chaos that threatened to tear us apart. Fueled by adrenaline and fear, we raced deeper into the woods. With every step, I felt the shadows stretching and pulling, grappling at the core of my being. The unseen entities echoed my fears, feeding off our confusion and desperation. I could hear whispers, feel presence in the dark. They were right there, on the cusp of awakening something that had long been dormant. And then I remembered this wasn't the first time I had felt the sensation of shadows lurking. I had been afraid before, in the years of silence since my father disappeared, feeling his absence linger like a haunted place that never quite settled, a silence brewing beneath the surface. Suddenly, I stumbled, almost losing my footing, but before I realized it, a hand shot out, steadying me. The janitor, his face seemed to materialize from the depths of the darkness, illuminated by a light of fire, perhaps. The only beacon, a sign of hope amid despair. Your heart has led you here, he said, his voice firm and unwavering. You must embrace your strength and confront the truths that chase you. You want to escape them by running away. What truths? I cried, my voice echoing against the trees. What do you want from me? His gaze pressed into my very soul, and within that instant, I saw not just a janitor but a man burdened with secrets, with pain that mirrored my own. To forgive what once was, you must be willing to reface it. Trust me. My eyes widened, realizing it was the same lesson he had tried to impart earlier. The shadows danced and howled around us, a vibrant storm clamoring for my attention. The very things I feared were also the things I needed to face. Stand strong, Milo, he exclaimed, reminding me that even in that darkness, there existed a flicker of strength. Your voice is powerful, use it. As the figures drew closer, the swirling miasma of fear flashed through my mind for a split second. But there, amid the terrible chaos, was my mother, her gaze steadfast, giving me the strength I needed. And in that moment of clarity, I heard the truth dance upon my lips. No. I shouted into the darkness, summoning the whole of my being. You do not have power over me. You will not take any of us. Gasps echoed through the shadows, the energy shifting like a tide washing away the remnants of fear. The shapes were forced back, crumbling under the weight of those words, lost against a field of shimmering light, and just like that, hope ignited a spark within our convergence, a quiet promise that together we would not just endure but thrive. In that precise moment, the veil of fear shattered as clarity blossomed, and the figures faltered, revealing the fragmented pieces of my past, their faces flickering like images from a forgotten dream. The anger, the hurt, the shadows, they all dissipated, waiting for the moment of reckoning to unravel in harmony with the truth. In a surge of emotion, I turned back to my mother, my heart bare. Please, we need to confront everything together. All of it. As our breath steadied, she nodded, her gaze fierce, and a gentle resolve surged between us, drawing us closer together as the shadows shrank back, embedded in the earth beneath us. The janitor remained firm, guiding us as we ventured forth, for hearts beating as one, ignited by the fragile power of finally confronting the storm unleashed by unspoken echoes. Lily clung to me, innocent still shining through the remnants of fear as we stepped boldly toward the chaos previously blinding us. The winds howled, carrying our truths, mingling with the terrors of the unknown. And together, we would unveil the secrets waiting behind the veil. The journey beckoned, and finally I understood, to heal from darkness, you must face it, and from that confrontation, light would shine anew. And amid the growing clarity, a powerful realization filled my heart: love triumphs even in the darkest shadows, binding us through storms and threads of destiny, reminding us always to believe in the light that lingers on the horizon. As we took those fateful steps forward, the shadows receded. I stole a glance at my mother, her eyes now glimmering with hope. I dared to breathe, allowing the weight of the moment to wash over me, wrapping around my heart with warmth and acceptance. In the profound quiet that lingered, I felt the power of possibility swirling unchained around us, and I realized I was precisely where I needed to be. Confronting our shadows, we were no longer alone. So in that moment, as the darkness faded into the past, I grasped the truth, one thread of light chasing away the shadows, illuminating the path to healing, and I whispered into the quiet, no more fear. Only love.